You're welcome to the Policy Council. My name is Okwayemi Agbaje. On this edition, my core focus is on legal issues affecting women: rape, inheritance, children's rights, and such issues. We'll touch also on women affirmative action, but I'll take the opportunity of having a distinguished litigator and arbitrator on this program to also discuss the issue of arbitration and alternative dispute resolution. Enjoy the program. You're welcome back. It's still the Policy Council. My name is still Okwayemi Agbaje, but my guest is different. My guest is one of Nigeria's foremost female. Indeed, if I didn't put female, she would still be one of Nigeria's foremost legal practitioners. Yeah, but she's female. She's a senior advocate of Nigeria. She was called to the bar in 1974. She graduated LLM from Harvard Law School in 1977. And she's been a legal practitioner ever since. She's a partner in one of the most prestigious law partnerships in Nigeria, ALEX. And she's the vice chairman, I believe, of the Lagos Court of Arbitration.
That's true.
Mrs. Funke Adekoya, SAN. You're welcome to the Policy Council.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
I was, obviously, we try to research these things, and yeah, I've always known you, but actually reading that you were called to the bar in 1974. How did you sustain this focus on one legal activity for almost 4 decades, maybe more?
I think really that anyone who stays in legal practice today, within the context of what law is like today, it's clearly because you have a passion for it. And I think I have a passion for law. I really can't see myself doing anything else other than one, being a litigator, being a disputes resolver. That's what I've always wanted to do in one form or the other. And I guess the years just rolled by and I didn't even realize it.
And I noticed you didn't just call yourself a litigator. You said you're a dispute resolver.
Yes.
And that takes me to this Lagos Court of Arbitration. I guess there's increasing recognition that the objective is to resolve disputes.
Exactly.
And you can do it through litigation.
Exactly.
But you can also do it through arbitration.
Exactly.
What's the concept of the Lagos Court of Arbitration? What's it trying to achieve?
Firstly, the whole concept of arbitration is something that's more akin to the African background, whereas litigation rarely is not what Africans are about. We try to resolve our disputes in a fashion that ends up, people end up as friends. Both sides feel happy with the decision, whether it is at a traditional council in the village or whether it is
in
a
front
pastor.
of the Olori-Ebi,
exactly.
or the pastor.
Exactly. Whereas litigation is a Western concept. You go to a court, somebody wins, somebody loses, somebody is happy, somebody is unhappy. Within the concept of the Lagos Court of Arbitration, it's a private sector driven organization. It is supported by the Lagos State government only to the extent that they have provided us with a building and they have given us a structure. The structure is the Lagos Arbitration Law, and there's a Lagos Court of Arbitration Law. Other than that, government has no involvement in the Lagos Court of Arbitration. One of the things foreign investors look at is resolving disputes. In any country in the world, the foreign investor doesn't want to get into your courts.
More particularly in a country in which it
country.
may take a decade.
Well, in any country, they don't want to get into the courts. They want an impartial provider of disputes resolution. That's what the Lagos Court of Arbitration aims to be for foreign investment coming into Lagos, because Lagos is a hub to West Africa, and it's also an entrance into the whole of Africa. So we want to provide that service.
I hear something about someone in Abuja drafting an alternative dispute resolution commission bill.
Yes. I want to believe that the best interests were at heart. I want to believe it. But it's not going to achieve the objectives that government have. Firstly, the whole concept of arbitration is that it's private, it's non-governmental, and it's by agreement of the parties. Now, this National Arbitration Commission bill does the exact opposite. It tends to regulate arbitrators, regulate arbitration, and bring the state wholly involved in the arbitration process.
Which is what people are running away
Which is what people are running away from. And the amount of money that government, or those who are sponsoring the bill, say government should commit to opening 36 centers, one in every state, to register arbitrators, to monitor their training, to provide advice, is totally counterproductive. And it's not what we should be spending government money on at this time. There are much more important things that we should be doing.
I totally agree. Let's take a short time out. We'll be back with Mrs. Funke Adekoya, SAN. You're welcome back to the Policy Council. I have a distinguished legal practitioner, Mrs. Funke Adekoya, SAN, with me. She went to Great Ife, and she was called to the bar since 1975. Yep. We can't have you and not talk a little bit about the legal issues affecting women. And one of those that worries me is the issue of rape. I mean, and it's a global thing. It's not just Nigeria. In India, we saw an uproar about people dragging a lady on a bus, and in South Africa, there's an epidemic of rape. But in Nigeria, I am shocked at the amount of, news stories about a 74-year-old man raping a 6-year-old girl, or a senator marrying a 13-year-old or 14-year-old girl. Until recently, maybe it was underreported, and now
I think it was underreported.
And it's now being reported.
Yeah.
But I'm alarmed at the scale that this appears to have. What are your thoughts on this?
In any society in which women are seen as property, then rape is not seen as a crime. It's seen to an extent as a man's right to have sex with a woman anytime he wants. The issue of consent, which is what rape is all about, it's sexual intercourse without the woman's consent, is seen as actually anti-cultural. The man has no business seeking consent. And even if he's interested, the woman has no right to say,
to deny the consent.
I'm not interested. And so that is why rape is an issue. I believe it has been underreported. I believe what has brought about the upsurge in the cases is the fact that women are now standing up and reporting. The stigma that was attached to rape still exists, but families are now prepared to confront that stigma and say, we are going to report our daughter has been raped. That's why you see an upsurge in the reporting. I'm not sure that there's an upsurge in rape per se. Women have started to attain some economic empowerment. They're contributing to family life. They're contributing to the society by way of political appointments and other ways of being in the face of society. The laws have always been there. Laws against rape have always been there. Punishment for rape has always existed, but it's been hardly utilized. In the past, you reported, and either the police would say, okay, go and settle.
Go and settle.
Or they would say, you don't want people to know this happened, though, because it will affect your ability to be married. And all that seems to be changing. And I think that's why we think there's an upsurge.
I know there are laws in Nigeria against bigamy as well.
I'm not sure whether those laws still exist, at least in Lagos.
Okay.
But this is what happens when law is supposed to be the realization of people's beliefs. And bigamy came onto the statute books because the Englishman said...
Because the British thought it was a crime.
It was a crime. But the African or the average Nigerian saw the interlinkage between a native law and custom marriage and a statutory court marriage as a non-issue. And that's where bigamy comes about. Bigamy doesn't exist if you marry 4 wives under native law and custom.
Okay.
Bigamy only exists if you marry one under native law and custom and marry someone else under the Marriage Act, which to the Nigerian didn't mean anything at all. His culture allowed him to marry more than one. So the crime always existed. But I think there was only one prosecution in all the years. And even then, the man was found not guilty because he said he converted to Islam. And so society actually just like looked at it and said, this doesn't solve the problem. And so take it off the statute books.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they haven't provided a solution to the problem. So we're still left hanging.
Let me take a final one. Women's inheritance, particularly under native law and custom. So there's still this lack of clarity. What's the law? What's the position? Are women subject to inheritance? Are they not?
If you take customary law, in many areas of Nigeria, women are subject to be inherited. That's our customary law. But if you take the Constitution, which says no discrimination, that is the opportunity that women have to challenge these customary laws or customary rights that are repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience. And even just recently, when Chinua Achebe died, there was a statement that his wife was free to come home. She would not be subjected to any widow's rights.
For someone like...
For someone as enlightened as that, not just...
And the woman herself was a professor.
Yes. So it still exists. It's still part of our culture. But we're getting to a point where we have women NGOs and other groups that are prepared to challenge those rights. What we need to do is to strengthen the women themselves to be able to come forward. Women are coming forward to challenge inheritance rights. We've seen many cases in court where they've actually come to say, no, I'm a child, I'm a daughter, or I'm a wife, I am entitled to inherit. But the issue of the widow's rights, you must shave your head, you must be in seclusion for 40 days, we still have to encourage women to challenge that because the Constitution does protect them.
Okay, interesting. Let's take another time out. I'm having this enlightening discussion with one of our leaders at the bar. We'll be right back.
My name is Laide Awoyemi. I dey live for Lagos. You see as our new Lagos just define the go. Good thing good though. To go market now, no hard at all. Just pay. Sit down inside BRT bus. Small time, you don't reach where they go. Hospital call, the full ground. And for me and my pikin where I just born, treatment now free. You look left, you look right. Them they build new roads, new hospitals, new schools, new things everywhere. Everywhere they shine, gone. We thank God though. But come on, I hear saying that this tax money where they pay, and then they use to do all these good things. Me, they pay my own tax too. Say they pay your own.
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back. It's still the Policy Council, and I'm still with Mrs. Funke Adekoya. Let's, before I go into some general legal issues, I wanted to take your opinion on this 35% affirmative action. And I don't know whether it's to his credit. The federal government, under Goodluck Jonathan, appears to have really appointed a lot of women into office. And I don't think that is bad. But there's a part of me that also questions whether you ever emancipate social groups through quotas. Whether the fundamentals, the real fundamentals, the cultural practices, educating the girl child, all those more substantive actions required to emancipate the whole group in a sustainable manner. Are those not the more important things? Do quotas, a criticism is this, quotas simply empower some elites?
I don't agree.
Okay?
I think, one, that quotas are a good thing in terms of affirmative action. It's how you implement the quota. That's the issue. Now, if you implement, so I totally support having quotas for women once you've agreed that we are disadvantaged and that it is necessary for us to be at par with our menfolk. And if you take the population, we're 50% of the population. And therefore, for the other 50% to say you're not disadvantaged, when if you look at politics, for instance, if you look at the appointed offices, yes, President Jonathan has done a good job. by virtue of those quotas. And in many instances, he has actually looked for round pegs and put them in round holes. So it depends on how you implement those quotas. But if you look at elected offices, we're virtually nowhere to be found. And that is because unless we have quotas, a percentage of seats reserved for women, we can then compete among ourselves on a level playing field among ourselves. But as things are, we can't compete with the men on the level playing field. We don't have the financial resources that they have to travel the country or to travel the state. And so if there's no level playing field, we won't win those elections.
Let me take this a step further and challenge you. You're a senior advocate of Nigeria. And there's no, you didn't get it with a quota. You got it only because you were a damn good lawyer. Because you got a very good education, and you graduated top of your class in Ife, over many men, you went to Harvard Law School, you got an LLM, you practiced law. I don't think there's any judge you stand in front of who thinks she got this son because we wanted a woman's son.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
So now, don't you feel better as a son in that context than as a minister who got appointed because the president said to the state governor, your states, I want a woman. And I know this is what happened in some cases. I want a woman from your state, from this state, from that state. So they start searching for a woman.
I still go back to my initial statement. It's not the quota that's the issue. It's the merits that's the issue. Because there are women who merit those appointments, who are more than qualified. And to come back to your story about senior advocates, when I became a senior advocate in 2001, I was the 5th woman. And at that time, we had over 200 men. We now have over 350 senior advocates. And we have about 15 women. In 2002, I asked a Supreme Court judge, are we having any women senior advocates this year? And his response was, you mean there aren't enough of you already?
Wow.
So whether we accept it or not, in the minds of those who are awarding it, a position that is sought by many, there is still an element of it's our province or it's our privilege. And so when a woman is let in, it's still seen as grudgingly. In fact, you find out that rarely, by the time a woman becomes a senior advocate, she's overqualified for it. Or she's applied more times than a man has applied. So rarely, I'm not saying we should have quotas for women senior advocates, but I'm saying that there is a benefit in having a quota.
Diversity.
Where women are endangered species. And clearly in politics, we are an endangered species.
Okay. Another time out. I'm enjoying this discussion. We'll be right back with Mrs. Adekoya.
Okay. Hey, welcome my son.
We are giving free textbooks in our school today.
I thank God. I know with this Lagos State government free education, my son will end up being a lawyer or medical doctor. He can even become an educated automobile engineer. My son tell me, say, their school don't get beautiful building with a better chair and desk, new library, computer for everywhere, laboratory today. My people, all these things our children they enjoy today, now our tax money do more, I they pay my tax.
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back. My last segment with Mrs. Funke Adekoya, SAN, and our constitution. What's your view? Do you think we have an optimal federal system? Do you think
we don't?
We certainly don't.
We don't. I think we don't. Either we don't know what we want, or we know what we want, but we don't have the courage to say it because we're afraid of what we're going to hear. We are not running a federal system, and I think everybody knows that. We're running a unitary system because a federal system, the federating units develop at their own pace and put their direction the way they see is best for their people. Now everything is directed from Abuja, including state police. We don't have state police. If we had a federal system, we should have the opportunity to have state police if we want to.
If you, yes.
You can then decide, I can't afford it, I don't need it, I don't want it, my state will utilize
the
federal police. But I mean, we've got state high courts, we have federal high courts. We have state offenses, we have federal offenses. So why should we not have state police and federal police? And you might actually find a situation where someone else would say, they pay better wages for police in X state, so I'll go and get a job there. But now there's no competition between the states because there's no federal structure really in place.
And then the role of the NJC. So first, does this NJC structure, one NJC, national NJC, appointing, disciplining, promoting judges all over the country, is it in line with federalism, or do you think it's, well, whether or not it's in line with federalism, is it working? And then the issue of judges' discipline and the approach of the NJC. I would like to have your comments.
The NJC is not in line with federalism. But federal structures differ from country to country. So you can have a national NJC on top of a federal structure, depending on how it operates. The purpose of the NJC was, one, to insulate the judiciary, which is the third arm of government, from politics across board. So that a judge was protected, irrespective of the party in power in the state in which he's operating. It was also
And that's desirable.
And that's desirable. It was also put in place to ensure that there's a uniformity of standards. But the belief was that as the Federation of Nigeria, the judiciary should have a uniform and a high standard, no matter which state a judge was appointed. Unfortunately, at some point, the disciplinary role of the NJC seems to have taken a backseat towards the appointment role. And what the CJN that we have now is doing is facing up to the issues that have come before the NJC over a period of time and saying, we've forgotten this aspect of the NJC. We need to look at it, because otherwise the whole purpose of the independence of the judiciary is gone if people have no confidence in judges. And that's why we have this searchlight,
disciplinary.
Yes, beamed on the judiciary and disciplinary actions. And I personally think it's a good thing. I think a lot of the lawyers are totally in support of what she's doing, because at the end of the day, it benefits the profession generally. If the judges are respected, the lawyers will be respected.
Let me ask a final question about your firm, Alex. I've interacted with the firm, excellent firm of top lawyers, and you have a partnership of maybe 7 or more.
Yeah, 7 now.
Distinguished people. How do partnerships work in Nigeria? We're not supposed to be good at collaborating.
Partnerships work if you want them to work, just like marriages. If you want them to work. I think, one, you must have a unity of purpose. You must run it as a business structure. We've had a partner who's left. The firm didn't dissolve. It was mutually agreed. It seemed as if the objectives of the firm had fallen out had diverged from personal objectives. There wasn't an issue. We remain good friends. We've brought in other partners since then. So I think really it's left to lawyers to determine what they want out of the partnership. Many times people go into it for the wrong reasons. We went into it because we wanted to develop a legal practice on the same levels as it works internationally. And that's why a partnership is not about we are friends, but it's a partnership of we have a common objective, we have common goals, and we have a common vision. And I think that's why we're still there today.
Interesting. Thank you very much, ma'am, for coming.
It's been my pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. Thank you.
We'll be right back. I'm sure you've enjoyed the discussion as well as I have. There are 3 disparate points we can take away from this discussion. One, we must work on emancipating the women. They're 50% of our population. And any society, any group, any institution that suboptimizes 50% of its human capital is doing very badly. So it's in our alliance's self-interest to make that 50% contribute its maximum, its optimum to society. And then alternative dispute resolution. It's a great path to proceed, especially in the face of the limitations of our judicial system. Today, somebody in Abuja wants to destroy that opportunity by creating another source of recurrent expenditure and probably another source of corruption. I think everybody should discourage that move. Alternative dispute resolution is a private sector mechanism and should not be taken over by government. Finally, federalism. It's clear, everybody I've spoken to on this program, and I've asked at least 7 legal practitioners and experts on this program, and not one of them has opposed the argument for true federalism, a proper federal structure, including state police. The mystery then is, what are the arguments on the other side? And why do we persist in a system that is clearly not working? Well, the question will lie in the air. We will evolve as Nigeria struggles with the issue of what kind of federalism. Thank you very much for watching.